It started as a humble drink in a North Carolina pharmacy, a bubbly tonic served to calm indigestion and lift spirits. Simple, innocent, local. You didn't just grow up with Pepsi. You were raised on it. The taste of childhood birthday parties, game nights, road trips, that blue can, that orange Cheeto dust, that cool ad with your favorite celebrity. Today, it's a $90 billion empire, a brand so powerful it can be found in 200-plus countries. It sponsors the Super Bowl. It's stocked in every gas station, school, and vending machine in America. But behind the logos, behind the neon flavors, lies a truth that PepsiCo never wanted you to know. They were selling you poison, because while they sold you fun, they quietly laced their products with petroleum-based chemicals linked to hyperactivity, cancer, and behavioral disorders. They built a global empire and poisoned generations in the process. What if I told you that every time you cracked open a Pepsi, munched on a Cheeto, or dipped into a bag of Doritos, you were consuming a cocktail of artificial dyes and additives that many countries have outrightly banned? Red 40, yellow 5, blue 1, petroleum-based chemicals banned in parts of Europe. Pumped into your food, your drinks, your kids' lunchboxes. Not for flavor, not for nutrition, but because it got you addicted and coming back for more. Because it was cheap, and it made them billions. This isn't a story about soda. It's a story about corporate greed, government silence, and the cost of trusting a smiling label. This is how PepsiCo poisoned America, and got away with it. And the worst part? They didn't just do it quietly. They marketed it as fun, as family, as food. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the real story of how PepsiCo poisoned America, with a smile on its face. If you're into fascinating business stories, uncovering the dark side of billion-dollar empires, and unbelievable true money stories, hit the subscribe button. Because we're just getting started. Let's go back to where it all started. The year was 1893. In the back of a small drugstore in New Bern, North Carolina, a young pharmacist named Caleb Bradham was tinkering with a soda fountain recipe. His goal wasn't to create a soft drink empire. He wanted to make something that could aid digestion and taste good. He called it Brad's Drink. It was a blend of carbonated water, sugar, caramel, nutmeg, lemon oil, and cola nut extract. Customers loved it. Word spread fast. And 5 years later, he renamed it Pepsi Cola. Why Pepsi? It came from dyspepsia, the medical term for indigestion. Yes, the company that would one day be blamed for America's obesity epidemic was originally marketed as a digestive aid. But success didn't come easy. By 1923, Bradham's Pepsi Cola company had gone bankrupt. Why? Because he'd bet big on sugar prices during World War I and lost everything. For most companies, that would have been the end. But Pepsi? Pepsi was just getting started. Over the next decade, it changed hands multiple times. In 1931, a candy manufacturer named Charles Goose took over and reformulated the drink. He slashed the price, doubled the bottle size to 12 ounces, and targeted the working class during the Great Depression. It was genius. While Coca-Cola sold 6 ounces for a nickel, Pepsi offered double the quantity for the same price, and used a catchy jingle to drive the message home. Pepsi Cola hits the spot /12 full ounces. That's a lot. Sales exploded. Pepsi was reborn. As World War II broke out, Pepsi kept scaling. It positioned itself as a patriotic brand, advertised to American troops, and spread across military bases. In the post-war boom of the 1950s, Pepsi took aim at its eternal rival, Coca-Cola. Where Coke was traditional, Pepsi went young, stylish, and bold. The Pepsi Generation campaign in the 1960s helped it capture the youth market. It wasn't just about the drink anymore. Pepsi was a culture. In 1965, Pepsi Cola Company merged with snack food giant Frito-Lay to form a new powerhouse, PepsiCo, a conglomerate of snacks, sodas, and eventually fast food. And with that, America was hooked. Their products were everywhere. Pepsi wasn't just selling soda anymore. It was selling a lifestyle, convenient, addictive, and everywhere. By the late 70s, PepsiCo had expanded its reach across fast food, beverages, and processed snacks. Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, Mountain Dew, Gatorade, Tropicana, Quaker Oats, all under one empire. Pepsi wasn't a beverage company anymore. It was becoming one of the largest processed food empires in the world. In the 1980s, the cola wars reached a fever pitch. Pepsi went on the offensive with blind taste tests, flashy celebrity endorsements, and global expansion. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Britney Spears, Beyoncé. They weren't just selling soda. They were selling cool. And while Coca-Cola stuck with tradition, Pepsi gambled on radical branding, innovation, and pushing boundaries. By the 1990s, Pepsi was in over 150 countries. It had become a symbol of American capitalism, even managing to strike a deal with the Soviet Union, famously bartering Pepsi for vodka during the Cold War. But behind the iconic commercials and shiny ad campaigns, something darker was brewing. Because to scale that fast, you need shortcuts. By the time the new millennium arrived, PepsiCo's product lineup was no longer just sugar and flavor. They had to make their products irresistible. But there was a dirty secret behind the flavors that made PepsiCo irresistible. In the quest to dominate shelves, cut costs, and build brand loyalty, PepsiCo leaned hard into synthetic ingredients, artificial dyes, flavor enhancers, and preservatives designed not to nourish, but to trick your brain. Red 40, Yellow 5, Blue 1, names that sound harmless, until you realize they're derived from petroleum. Petroleum, the same stuff used to make asphalt, plastic, and engine oil, now hiding inside your child's lunchbox. It was a chemical cocktail of preservatives, flavor enhancers, and, most dangerously, synthetic dyes. PepsiCo didn't just want to feed you. It wanted to condition you. Behind the scenes, food scientists carefully engineered the bliss point. The perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat that would keep you coming back for more. Cheetos weren't just cheesy. They were chemically designed to melt in your mouth so quickly that your brain forgot you even ate anything, leaving you craving more. Mountain Dew wasn't just citrusy. It was a high-voltage blend of caffeine, sugar, and artificial citrus flavor that overloaded your dopamine receptors. This wasn't food. It was pharmaceutical-grade manipulation, and Americans ate it up. Literally. By the 1990s, PepsiCo's products were household staples. But while revenue soared, so did something else. Public health concerns, childhood obesity, attention disorders, early-onset diabetes, and a generation hooked on ultra-processed snacks. Researchers began linking synthetic dyes to ADHD and hyperactivity in children, potential carcinogenic effects, behavioral issues. Parents noticed mood swings after their kids ate snacks. Schools reported attention problems. Doctors warned against overexposure. But PepsiCo didn't blink. They didn't just resist change, they doubled down. Even as their products continued to flood American households, vending machines, and public schools, the very communities PepsiCo claimed to serve were becoming sicker, heavier, and more dependent on the very products causing the damage. Their numbers shot up. In 2022, PepsiCo generated $86 billion in revenue. That's more than the GDP of entire countries. How? Because artificial ingredients are cheap, intensify flavor, and keep manufacturing costs low. And removing artificial ingredients meant higher costs, shorter shelf lives, and reformulating bestsellers. Natural coloring? Expensive. Petroleum-based dyes? Dirt cheap. Real cheese powder? Costly. Cheese flavoring? A lab-made imposter. By cutting these corners, PepsiCo didn't just dominate the market. It reshaped the American diet. Entire aisles in grocery stores became Pepsi zones. Quaker Oats, Tropicana Juice, Gatorade, Fritos, Lipton, Captain Crunch. The illusion of variety under a single banner. And their marketing? Masterful. Super Bowl commercials, school sponsorships, vending machines in hospitals, all while lobbying Congress to keep regulation far, far away. It worked. For decades, the FDA allowed dyes like Red 40 and Yellow 5 to flood the market, despite mounting evidence of links to hyperactivity in children and potential carcinogenic effects. Europe said no. America said, have another Dorito. But the tide was turning. The pressure was mounting. By the 2010s, independent research, consumer watchdogs, and health advocates began sounding the alarm. Parents noticed behavioral issues in kids after consuming foods with synthetic dyes. Activists began comparing ingredient lists, discovering that the same snack sold in Europe had natural coloring, while the US version was still laced with chemicals. Public pressure grew. Campaigns like Food Babe and Center for Science in the Public Interest forced brands to defend their use of artificial dyes. Meanwhile, lawsuits rolled in. PepsiCo tried to appease consumers with vague promises and natural product lines, but refused to change their core products. Why? Because change costs money, and the old formula was still profitable. But behind closed doors, they were panicking, because a new wave was coming, and it had the power to finally force their hand. In early 2025, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., now serving as U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, teamed up with FDA Commissioner Dr. Martin Makary to launch a nationwide crackdown on synthetic food dyes. Their mission? Purge the food supply of petroleum-based additives, starting with companies like PepsiCo. Suddenly, the game changed. In a conference call with investors, PepsiCo CEO Ramon Laguarta announced that by the end of 2025, the company would remove all artificial ingredients from its U.S. food products. Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, all of them. Why now? Because the government was finally stepping in. Because public trust was collapsing. Because PepsiCo had no choice. And because for the first time in decades, profit was being challenged by accountability. PepsiCo claims this is about health, about listening to consumers, about doing better. But let's be honest, this isn't a redemption arc. It's a damage control campaign. For decades, they ignored the science, buried the data, and doubled down on deception. All while children got sicker, waistlines got bigger, and medical bills piled up. And now, only when the walls are closing in, they want credit for cleaning up the mess they made. If the change is sincere, that's a start. But the consequences of their choices are still being felt across millions of households. The question is, who pays for the decades of damage? And what other companies are still doing the same thing? Silently? What PepsiCo teaches us is chilling. That billion-dollar empires can be built on deception. That food can be engineered for profit, not health. That companies parrot that their product caters to health in their ads doesn't mean it's true. That regulation only arrives after the damage is done. It also teaches us something more. Truth takes time, but it always catches up. Pepsi's image is forever stained, and no amount of flavor dust can cover that up. As consumers, we have more power than we think. Read the labels, question the ads, demand better, and remember, if it glows like a highlighter, maybe it shouldn't be in your stomach. If this story made you rethink what's on your plate, hit that subscribe button. We tell the stories that powerful corporations would rather keep buried. The frauds, the scandals, and also stories of how billion-dollar business empires were built and other incredible, unbelievable money stories. And we're just getting started. Do you think PepsiCo should be held accountable for the decades they used harmful ingredients? Yes or no? And what other brands do you suspect are doing the same? Let's talk in the comments.